A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Today marks the 9th Majalis at IEC Husaini Chicago for our Ashra English lecture series read by Moulana Syed, Safi, Haider, Abidi. I would like to start off the program by inviting Brother Safir Agha for recitation of Salam. Awaz Balan Salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
जवां की लाश उठाने चले हैं हम, सीधी हो कमर तुझे अब्बास की कसम, करियल जवां की लाश उठाने चले सीधी हो कमर तुझे अब्बास की कसम, ये इम्तिहान ज़ईफ़ी में मुझको निभाना है, अकबर को लेके ख़ैमाए ज़ैनब में जाना है, रास्ते में लड़खड़ाए ना शबीर के कदम, सीधी हो कमर तुझे अब्बास की कसम, गुर्बत पे अपनी रोया है खुद बेन फातिमा, गिर गिर के तय किया है ये मक्तल का फासला, बस हमसे दूर लाश है अकबर की दो कदम, सीधी हो कमर तुझे अब्बास की कसम, राशा है इस कदर के लरज़ते हैं मेरे हाथ, लाशा है ये रसूल का अकबर के साथ साथ, दो लाशें के साथ उठाएंगे कैसे हम, सीधी हो कमर तुझे अब्बास की कसम, सीने में कह के तोड़ी है जालिम ने ये सिना, अब देखे ना हुसैन की निकलेगी कैसे जान, जालिम को ये बताना है इब्ने आली हम, सीधी हो कमर तुझे अब्बास की कसम, अम्मा के साथ मिलके सिना मैंने खींच ली, हाथों में अब हमारे वो ताकत नहीं रही, पास क्या गए मेरे बाजू हुए कलम सीधी हो कमर तुझे अब्बास की कसम इस हाल में ख़याम में जाऊंगा किस तरह ज़ैनब की कायनात उठाऊंगा किस तरह ज़हरा का चांद करबो बला में हुआ है सीधी हो कमर तुझे अब्बास की कसम
Bawaz Balan Salawat, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajam. Before we get started, recitation for Surah Fatiha for Marhum that passed away today. He's the grandfather of, actually, the youth director of IEC Husaini. His name is Marhum Mirza Farooq Shirazi, son of Mirza Yahya Shirazi. Bismillah ar-Rahman. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajam. Today marks the 9th Majalis in our Ashra English lecture series, read by Moulana Syed, Safi, Haider, Abidi. Today's speech continues on the topic of Marifat al-Nafs, al-Irfan, and Shi'ism. Please recite a loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajam.
الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وصلى الله على آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد من عرف نفسه فقد عرف ربه. Tonight marks the end of a lecture series where we have talked about the development and the origins of Shia Aqaid through history, where on the first night set up the basic discussion on the Aqaid of the Imamiyyah, meaning those who follow the school of the 12 Imams of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wassalam. And the first night we talked about the development of the concept of Tawheed specifically, but in general in terms of Aqaid, within the concept of sacred history. And it was discussed that the sacred history is very important for us to understand the context of not only the revelation of the Quran, but every aspect of religious experience. And when this conception of sacred history takes place, that is the best way to understand what the religion is. Like I said, not only just of the Sha'an al-Nuzul, of the ayat of Quran, but you cannot escape religion. You cannot escape history when it comes to religious experience. Everything comes within the framework of a religious context, of a sacred historical context. Not religious context, but everything in religion occurs within the context of sacred history. That is why the history is sacred. When I say that everything develops within the concept of sacred history, we need to understand what happened in the history before we can understand what the sacred history is. And the beginning of the discussion of the development of aqaid started on that night with a brief introduction to the concept of tawheed within the framework of sacred history. And then the next night I talked about the development of the context of adalah. The third night we talked more about the specific certain sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The fourth night was a discussion on the concept of nubuwah. The fifth night we talked about imamah and qiyamah. For the next couple of nights I spent talking to you about the development of Marifat al-Nafs within the context of aqaid. It is important for us to note that everything happens within the context of aqaid. Even fiqh happens within the context of aqaid. And also it happens within the context of sacred history. What was accepted or not accepted in fiqh is a part of that sacred history. And then finally I started to talk about the conception of what man arafa nafsahu faqad arafa rabba means. And we reached this final night of ours. The night is the most beautiful of things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَجَعَلْنَا اللَّيْلَ لِبَاسًا وَجَعَلْنَا النَّهَارَ مَعَاشًا وَبَنَيْنَا فَوْقَكُمْ سَبْعًا شِدَادًا. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created this world, and the night is a veil, libas, for the believer. Now, when we talk about sacred history and the development of aqaid and then the development of fiqh within the concept of sacred history, we have to understand that therefore, when I understand fiqh, is the only way I can understand aqaid. And the way I can only understand Irfan is through fiqh as well. You see, when I talk about God, it occurs to us that if there is a Lord or a God, that if that God wants us to do something, He has mandated it for us, then it is for the eternal bliss, which is the radha of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Paradise itself is a symbol of the bliss of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And all I want in this life is the bliss of God, because that is the most successful individual. The prophets have said very openly what the message of Allah has been, and the Quran has been emphatic about it. The Holy Prophet himself says, I have not been sent unto you except to perfect the nobility of your character. Meaning, I was not sent for namaz or siyam or khums and zakat and jihad. I was sent for the social aspect of these acts of worship. If I do not fulfill my relationships to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and if I do not fulfill my relationship to the human being, how can I call myself a true follower of Husaini ibn Ali alayhi salam? It's not possible. You see, Karbala brings us many lessons. The one lesson is tawheed. The other lesson is adalah. The other lesson is submission to the will of the prophets of God. Because as I have mentioned in previous lectures in the series, Yazid said quite bluntly there was no revelation, there was no wahi, it was all a sham, so that the Banu Hashim can get power. That's all Yazid said, and that was enough for Bibi Zainab to tear down the whole Darbar of Yazid. That was enough. If I do not fulfill my rights to the individual human being, how can I fulfill my responsibility to Abu Abdullah? First, let's talk about rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then let's talk about what the rights of the human beings are within the context of the rights or within the concept of fiqh itself, but in general as well. If I accept that there is a God, if I accept that there is a divinity, then submission to the will of the divinity is the crux through which I have to live my life. Because God said so, quite frankly. Now, why God says what God says, how God says what he says, is the topic of Nabuwah. How he says it is through prophets. But the prophets of God have made it very specific that unless, when it comes to the human interaction, unless I satisfy the will or the right of my fellow human being, I am not satisfying anything. For example, I want to offer salat, and I'm at your house. Or reverse it, you will give me permission, inshallah, but let's say you are at my house, and you want to offer prayers. You're at my house, you want to offer prayers, I say no, you cannot pray here. Can you pray here? Religion says you cannot pray here. Why? The right of God is there, but until I satisfy the right of the human being, it is as if I've done nothing. It is as if I've done nothing. Period. I have to make sure that even if God gives me a command, through whichever way God means, that I satisfy the will of the human being first, and then I go satisfy the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And God will make sure that if I have the most sincerest of intentions, if I am not capable of satisfying the will of the human being, he will open up the heart of that human being, as long as my intention is sincere, so much so that that human being forgives me. But then where is Karbala in this? Karbala itself, as the epic battle or fight between Imam Husaini and Yazid ibn Muawiyah, did not start in 61 AH, it did not start on the 2nd Muharram on any specific date. You see, Kullu yawmin Ashura, kullu ardhin Karbala. Every land is Ashura, every place is Karbala. Every time is Ashura and every place is Karbala. Karbala started where, when, how? Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam sees a dream, and he sees in his dream that he is sacrificing his son. This story is juxtaposition to Karbala. It goes very well with the Karbala narrative. As a matter of fact, is the origin, the Quranic origin of what happens in Karbala is partially these few verses. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives Nabi Ibrahim a dream. He sees in his dream he is sacrificing his son. The dream of Nabi are hujjah of Allah. All of them are. He goes and he asks his son. Remember, he has already received the command from God, but he is still asking his son for permission or his view. He says to his son, son, I saw in a dream that I was sacrificing you. What do you think of this? His son, Nabi Ismail, understands that the dream of a prophet are the commandment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they cannot be delayed. The commandment of God comes within the dream of Prophet Ibrahim, and he asks his son, and his son says, Father, do what you have been commanded. Insha'Allah min as-sabirin. Insha'Allah, you will find us of the patient ones. This is in Surah As-Safat, right after Surah Al-Yasin. And I mentioned this earlier because there is an instance of tahrif in one of the verses where the verse is supposed to be Salamun ala ali Yasin, and the Muslims have written Salamun ala il Yasin. But Nabi, that's not the topic of discussion. Nabi Ibrahim sees the dream and he acts upon it. He takes his son, he ties his eyes in a band, and he ties up his son so his son doesn't move, and he is about to sacrifice him. Allah replaces Nabi Ismail with a ram. Nabi Ibrahim thinks his sacrifice has not been accepted, therefore Allah consoles him, saying that فَأَتَمَّهُنَّ, that he was successful in that test. And then in Surah Safat, he says, وَفَدَيْنَاهُ بِذِبْحٍ عَظِيمٍ, we have ransomed your sacrifice with a greater sacrifice. According to the Imamiyah, the ذِبْحٍ عَظِيم stands for the tragedy of Karbala. ذِبْحٍ عَظِيم is that tragedy which is supposed to come as a result of Allah replacing Nabi Ismail and replacing him with an animal for a later time. You see, even in the Karbala narrative, I believe it is said that Imam Sajjad and Nabi Ismail were both saved for the right reasons, obviously. Allah wanted to save them. But the comparison is Allah replacing Nabi Ismail with a ram is similar to Imam Sajjad's state or sickness on the day of Ashura, because through Allah replacing Nabi Ismail with a ram and Allah making Imam Sajjad sick on the day of Ashura, the Nabuwah continued through the lineage of Ismail, and in the same way the Imamah continued through the lineage of Imam Sajjad. When Aba Abdullah al-Husaini alayhi salam bids his last farewell, and he goes to the tents of Imam Sajjad, Imam Sajjad cannot recognize his father. He says to him, Zainab, who is this? And on Zainab, Zainab says, Sajjad, my son, this is your father, Hussein. And then he says, on Zainab, get me my walking stick and a sword. Imam Hussein says, what are you going to do with the walking stick and the sword? Imam Sajjad says, with this walking stick I will stand, and with the sword I will fight for the grandson of Rasulullah. Imam Hussein hears this, and he says to Sayyidina Zainab, confine him, restrain him, because if he goes out, the world will run out of the progeny of Muhammad. These villains are so vile that they won't even leave the sick or the children from the progeny of Muhammad. They will not even do that. That is the number one example, is Nabi Ibrahim being sacrificed, through which Karbala happened. Let's be frank. Now, let me give you another example. This example, I believe, was given by Moulana Qalb Sadiq Sahab. It was in response to 9/11. He said, look, let's say I'm praying, and let's say besides me is a pond or a lake or a pool. I am praying, and I see somebody drowning. It's not a Muslim, it doesn't have to be Muslim, Jew, Christian, Hindu, Sikh, whatever. Sharia or Islam tells me to go into that body of water to save the life of the Muslim and then come up and finish my prayer later. When Imam Ali alayhi salam is Khalifa, there are instances, for example, in the Khilafat of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Talha and Zubayr, they had wanted to come ask Imam Ali to increase the whatever they get from Bayt al-Mal, to give them some leverage in Bayt al-Mal. And they go to Imam Ali. They say, Ya Ali, we have a question for you. We have a request for you. We have something we want you to solve. And he says, is this an issue of the public, or is this a private matter? They say it's a private matter. Imam Ali, he has a lamp on. He turns it off, and he turns it off on another one. You know what they say? They said, why'd you do that, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen? Why'd you do that, Ali? He said, that lamp, that lantern, was bought from public money. This is a private matter. I am using the lantern or the lamp that I bought with my own money to solve this matter. That is what A'immah Ahlul Bayt are all about. Imam Ali is the vicegerent of the Rasulullah. He's the Khalifatullah on the earth. Yet he has so much, yet because of the fact that he is Allah's rightful Khalifa on this earth, he has so much love and respect for each and every individual, each and every creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that he cannot bear to see any act of injustice or excess happen under his watch. Whether it is him turning off the lantern, or there is another incident, I believe Imam Ali, there was a dispute between a Jewish person and Imam Ali on a saddle, I believe. And they both went to the court, and the Jewish person and Imam Ali went to the court of the Qazi together. The Jewish person saw the Qazi get up, and he said, basically, he addressed the Jewish person saying, Ya Yahud, and then he said to Imam Ali, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. Amir al-Mu'mineen walks out of the courtroom. Because he says, you address this person with his name, you called me Amir al-Mu'mineen, you are at the level of Qadi. Your role is to deal justly regardless of who comes in or out. If you treat anybody with preference, there will be a stain on Islam forever. That is why in Shia fiqh, they say the only person that can become a Qadi in Shi'ism is a Mujtahid, an Ayatollah. Because an Ayatollah is required to derive the law from its sources. A Qadi is supposed to derive the law from its sources and apply it to practical situations, which is what a Mujtahid, only a Mujtahid can do. To derive law from the sources of Sharia is the work of a Mujtahid, of an Ayatollah. That is what Mujtahideen can do. Now, when we talk about all of this, I like to remind myself and yourself, dear brother and sisters, the days of Ashura are coming near, are ending very soon. Tomorrow will be the 10th of Muharram, and the house of Fatima Zahra will not remain the same. But the character of the house of Fatima Zahra remains the same. You see, one time Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, I believe he was coming back from Hajj, Hasin ibn Namir, who was the killer of Salam ibn Anas, or one of the killers of Ali and al-Akbar, or the killer of Imam Hussein, came. They were lost. They saw a tent in the background. They went to that tent, and somebody didn't look like they recognized him, but it was Imam Sajjad. And he said, they asked him for, when he finds out this is Imam Sajjad, they get scared. Because they're like, now we are in the position of neediness. Imagine what the Imam is going to go do to us. They don't know how Rahman and Rahim this Imam is. They go ask for a night's rest, and the Imam gives it to them. Basically, they say to the Imam with a motion saying, you don't recognize us. He says, how can I not recognize the one who killed my brother and my father and my family? But last time, you were the masters in Karbala, we were the guests. Now we are the masters, you are our guests. We are the masters, now you are the guests. That is the beauty of Karbala. That is the beauty of Ayam of Azadari of Imam Hussein. That is the nature of these nights. And they reveal the nature of the characteristics of Aimma Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wasalam. In another incident, they say that the killers of Abu Abdullah came to Imam Sajjad, and Sayyidah Zainab was there. They asked him, Ya Ibn Rasulullah, is there a way for us to be forgiven? He says, Na'am. Yes. The Zainabs are like, excuse me? These people just killed your father, they killed your father, they killed your brother, they killed your uncle, they killed your baby brother, they killed your cousins and nieces, and not nieces, well, nieces and nephews, and all of them. They are the reason Sakina is not alive, they're the reason Qasim is not alive, they are the reason that Ali Akbar is not alive, they're the reason that Abu Fadl Abbas is not alive, they are the reasons why Ali Asghar is not alive, they're the reasons Why Abu Abdullah is not alive? They're the reason why Fatima Zahra Sughra is an orphan. And you say still they can be forgiven? How? He says, if you recite 2 rak'ah Salat al-Ghafala, you will be forgiven. But then he turns to his other and he says, I know they will not recite it. मतलब इनके बस की बात थी ही नहीं. गुनाह करने के बाद माफी मांगना एहसास गुनाह की अलामत है. In traditions we have that the sin which causes remorse and regret is better than the prideful ibadat which causes conceit. Now, imagine, this is the mercy of the Aimah of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wasalam. At full-fledged, the integrity of Aimah Ahlul Bayt depends on the fact that they always submitted to the wills of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Regardless of what happened, the Prophet of God and the Ahlul Bayt and the companions of the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt stuck by the principles of La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah means there's no God but God, and I've mentioned this thoroughly in our previous lectures. There's no God but God, but that means there is a sociological, a political, an anthropological dimensions to it as well. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that from Adam and its mate we created all of humanity, that means literally from the Adamic source or the Muhammadan reality, all the differences in religion were created. إِنَّا جَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلًا لِتَعَارَفُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ we created you into various nations and tribes. The best one of you is the one who has the most taqwa. That is the best one of you. If I submit to the will of Allah today and I say, Ya Allah, I pledge allegiance, when Imam Sahib Zaman comes, I will be ready for him. You think that what if Imam Zaman won't happen? I will be fighting for the Imam. Allahumma ajjal waliyik al-faraj. The people of Kufa actually wrote letters which summary meant Allahumma ajjal waliyik al-faraj. But their actions and their attitudes were such that the Safir of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn had to say, Mawla, their hearts are with you, yet their swords are against you. They love you, but they hate you. They love you, their hearts are there. But there's been such a terror wreaked on them, that they don't want to fight the tyrant authority, Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, directly. They say that Yazid is bringing an army who's going to rape the women and loot the markets and God knows do what to the sons and the fathers and the nephews and the uncles and the aunts and whoever. There is a halchal in Kufa saying that if we find Sayyid Abu Abdullah al-Husayn, our physical lives would be lost and our material lives would be completely lost. Therefore, they decide not to side with Abu Abdullah al-Husayn and they decide to fight him. Woe the nature of these Kufans. But is that the nature of just one city? Or is that the nature of all of humanity? Whereby, yes, I do believe wholeheartedly every individual is born good. There's no bad in any baby that's born. And I'm not talking about religion, I'm just talking about the heart. And by that, I don't mean a postmodern understanding of the heart versus religion. No. What I mean is, look, I'm going to try to understand religion the way God wants to do it. I'm going to understand religion the way Imam Ali wants me to do it. I'm going to understand religion the way Rasulullah wants me to do it. And the way they want me to do it is in such a manner that I fulfill the rights of my fellow human beings before I feel anything else. Karbala itself is a testing ground. There are many instances where Abu Abdullah al-Hussein gives nasiha to those who want to kill him. He asked them, is not Hamza Sayyid al-Shuhada my uncle? Is not Ja'far Tayyar my uncle? Haven't you heard Rasulullah say about me and my brother that Hadani Sayyid Shabab Ahl Jannah? He sends the one who looks and acts and does everything exactly like the Prophet directly in front of them to recite Adhan. They have the image in their mind that they're fighting Rasulullah now. If they continue to fight, it is on them, not Imam Hussein. Imam Hussein says, for example, go ask Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari. Go ask him. Go ask him. Did they go ask? No. He says, have I changed the salat or the psalm or anything like that in religion? They say no. Then why are you fighting me? بُغْضًا لِعَبِيكَ. Hatred towards your father. It's because your father killed our fathers in Badr and Uhud that we are fighting you, Hussein. It is because your father was the one who was a standard bearer of Islam, where when on Khaybar, Rasulullah says, the quotes of Quran is saying, tomorrow I will appoint the one who is brave and a man and who loves Allah and His Prophet, and Allah and His Prophet love him. He says, where is Ali? The famous dua of Rasulullah is Nadi Aliyun Madhar al-Ajaib Tajidhu Awnan Laka fi al-Nawaib Kullu Hammi wa Ghammin Sayanjali bi'azamatika Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah binabuwatika Ya Muhammad, Ya Muhammad, Ya Muhammad biwalayatika Ya Ali, Ya Ali, Ya Ali. Adrikni, adrikni, adrikni. Oh Ali, help me. Oh Ali, help me. Not only does he break Marhab in half, he lifts the gates of the door of Khaybar, which completely humiliates those who thought that they were going to get a chance when it comes to having the alam for once. Those who were always used to fleeing from the battle scene thought victory was going to be down at their hands. They did not know that victory was going to be only dealt with on the hands of the one who would implement the justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in every aspect of his life, in every category of his being, whereby he's not fighting with his physical hands. It is the iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that's fighting marhab. In Khandak, only Amir al-Mu'mineen gets to fight Amr ibn Abdul Wud. Only Amir al-Mu'mineen. Amr comes and says, listen, if you want to fight me and you die, you get paradise. And if I die, you get the perks of killing an infidel. What do you do? Rasulullah keeps on asking, who's going to fight? Imam Ali gets up and none of the Sahaba, nobody gets up. Rasulullah tells Ali to sit down. Then he gets up again. Asks him, who's going to fight? Imam Ali gets up. He tells him to sit down again. Imam Ali gets up again. Everybody's sitting down every time Rasulullah is asking. Every time Rasulullah is asking, they're all sitting down. The idea is that the flag of Islam goes to the one with the best character. If Ali alayhi salam is afdal in fadila, then he should be afdal in khilafah and imamah. That is the view of the Imamiyah. Now, mind you, in Sufi circles, they would say Ali is always afdal than the rest of them, because they do not necessarily pay that much importance to the political role of the Imam, but more the spiritual, the moral role, whereby to understand the Imam is to know the tariqah. But that's a different issue. And how different people can understand the Imam differently, that's a separate issue as well. That deserves itself, that one statement, a whole Ashra recited on it. Tonight is the night of hope. Tonight is the night of destiny. Tonight is the night of the Mi'raj of Husayn ibn Ali alayhi salam. That is tonight. This night, leads us to the Mi'raj of Ishq Husayn ibn Ali, which leads us to the Mi'raj of the Ishq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Mi'raj Ishq Husayn ibn Ali, the night of Shabi Ashur is Mi'raj Ishq Husayn ibn Ali. It is the night of the ascension of the love of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn, which leads us to the love or the Mi'raj of the Ishq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which merges us with the one so much that we can never be separated from it ever again. That is this night. How do I say it? Why do I say it? I've said this in previous lectures as well. This night is a night that has been given to every Hur from Hur ibn Yazid al-Riyahi to Akhir zaman. Anybody who wants to enter the Karbala'i movement can do so tonight. Tonight, Hur is looking and he sees heaven and hell in front of him, very openly, very bluntly, very frankly. He sees heaven and hell in front of him, and he has to make a decision, and he makes a decision for Imam Hussein. Tonight, we might be in different houses. I'm in New Jersey, you are in Chicago. Tonight, let us make the intention that we become the servant of Imam Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman, and that we sacrifice everything for him. Tonight is that night. Tonight is the night of Muqaddar. Taqdeer badal deti hai ye raat. This night changes the taqdeer of anybody. If Hur were to remain on the side of Yazid, he would have been remained accursed for his whole afterlife and even after that. But he chose the night to go to traverse Abu Abdullah al-Husayn. In Majlis mein Hur bhi alayhi salam hai, which is a famous noha recited by Nadeem Sarwar. This Majalis of Abu Abdullah is what makes Hur ibn Yazid al-Riyahi alayhi salam worthy of that title. Tonight is a very important night. There are many differences that occur between tonight and tomorrow night, and I'm getting my way to the musibah for tonight. But I would like to begin by saying that tonight, Shabi Ashur, is a night where tonight if Sakina wants to sleep on her father's chest, she can do so. If Layla wants her son Ali and al-Akbar and she wants to look at the Shabi of Rasulullah, she can do so. Ali Asghar is safe tonight. Tomorrow night, the veils are on tonight. Tomorrow night, the tents are well tonight. Tomorrow night, the tents are fine. Tomorrow night, Ali Asghar is resting. Tomorrow night, all the ashab of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn are partaking in prayer and dua, and the Ahl al-Bayt are partaking in prayer and dua. Tomorrow night, tonight, Sayyida Zainab knows that if the enemy wants to strike the tents, she has Al-Abbas. She has 18 brothers, from which include Imam Hussein as well. She has Ali Akbar as a nephew. She has Qasim as a nephew. They have all Muhammad as nephews. They have the remaining children. The two children of Muslim ibn Aqil were sent with Muslim ibn Aqil to Kufa, but they have two children here. They have the brothers of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. The children of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas are also there, except a few, but like Fadl. They are all ready to give everything for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And they're all ready to give everything for Sayyida Zainab in the Haram of Rasulullah. Tomorrow night, nobody will be there. Nobody will be there. Tonight, Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas is talking to Ali and al-Akbar, and he says, Ya Ali Akbar, look, tomorrow night is going to be a big war, a big battle. Let's do this. I can take care of half of Yazid's army. You take care of a quarter, and when I'm done, I will come and help you. We will leave the remaining quarter to the Ashab, and we will help the Ashab finish off the forces of Yazid. Imagine, the least number in the Maqtal that says How many people were in Yazid's army? It's 30,000. Abul Fadl al-Abbas is saying, Ali Akbar, I will take care of 15,000, not 1,500, not 15, 15,000 men. And you take care of basically what amounts to 7,500 or something like that. And then the other 7,000 is the Ashab, and we will come in together and we will help the Ashab defeat the remaining. This is the example of the extent of the shuja'at of Abu Fadl al-Abbas, where he is confident enough in his powers to say, I can finish off 15,000 men. 15,000 men. The fight of Karbala was supposed to happen on the 9th Muharram. Everything was ready for the 9th Muharram. Abu Abdullah al-Husayn asked one night for muhalat. And that is why they say tonight is a night of hor, the horrors of our time. And people might ask, why is it that Abu Abdullah al-Husayn asked for one more night? He wanted to spend another night in prayer. He knows this extension of the battle is going to lead to one more day of thirst, one more day of hunger, one more day of starvation, one more day of famine for Ahlul Bayt. But he is willing to do that for the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tonight, Abu Abdullah al-Husayn alayhi salam, Abu Abdullah al-Husayn alayhi salam addresses his companions. He says to his companions, "O companions, look, tomorrow there is going to be a massive war, massive battle. But the enemies, they're not looking for you. They want my blood. Therefore, I relieve you of your responsibility to me as your Imam, and you are free to leave." Nobody moves. Abu Abdullah al-Husayn says, if you are afraid that somebody will see you, I will turn off the lantern. And the lanterns were all shut off. And he says, you can go after the lanterns turn off. They turn them back on again. Nobody moves. Let's make a pact with Abu Abdullah al-Husayn that tonight in 2020, August of 2020, that when the Husayn of our time comes, we will say what the Ashab of Imam Husayn said when he turned the lanterns back on again. They say, if we are given life 100 times or 1,000 times, and our jugular vein, our breathing valves are torn asunder 1,000 times, 100 times, we are given life 1,000 times. We will give our lives for you each and every single one of those times. Let us say, Labbaika ya Imam Mahdi, the way the companions of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn said, Labbaika ya Husayn, Labbaika ya Mahdi, we pay allegiance to you, Ya Mahdi. Labbaika ya Mahdi, may our sons be sacrificed for you, Ya Mahdi. Labbaika ya Mahdi, may our daughters may our husbands be sacrificed for you, O Mahdi. Labbaika ya Mahdi, may our brothers be sacrificed for you, O Mahdi. Labbaika ya Mahdi, may our sons be sacrificed for you, Ya Mahdi. Ya Mahdi, tonight we make this dua in the bargah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes us amongst your servants. Tonight is a night of taqdeer. Tonight changes the taqdeer of individuals. It is that night where every mother is giving nasiha. But before I continue, I would like to say, when Hazrat Qasim was asked on that same night, that, son, what do you view of death? You know what he said? He said, in the way of you, uncle, death is sweeter than honey. He is only not even baligh, but he has the courage and the audacity to say, in the way of Abu Abdullah, in the way of Rasulullah, in the way of Aimah Ahlul Bayt, death is sweeter than honey. And now, Abu Abdullah al-Husayn, he goes to the tents. One incident is, he takes one of his companions to the maqtal, to the battleground, and they survey the situation, and there's this one place, Imam Hussein, they see it's very clean. You know what? The companion asks Abu Abdullah, Ya Abu Abdullah, what place is this? Abu Abdullah Hussein says, this is my qatlgah. This is the place where I will be martyred. This is the place where I will become shaheed. Every night, since I've been in Karbala, my mother takes Zuljana. Zuljana means two wings, but Zuljana was named Zuljana after Karbala or during Karbala on the 10th of Muharram, which has its specific meaning and name. But the real name of Zuljana was Murtajiz. And he says, my mother Fatimatul Zahra has been coming here every night. She has been cleaning the sands of Karbala with her hair. And she says to Murtajiz, Zuljana, look, this is the place where my Hussein is going to fall off of your back, to make sure his fall is not hurting him. Make sure that when he falls off, that you are lying down on the ground. Make sure to make it as easy for him as possible. Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, he is surveying the situation. He goes back to the tent and he is surveying the situation in the tent. Every mother is admonishing their children. Every mother is admonishing their children as to what is going to happen tomorrow. They all are saying, sons, there is a big battle coming tomorrow. I want you to be the first one to give your life for Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, I want you... I want you to be the first ones to give your life for Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Qasim is there. He sees Abu Abdullah when he goes to Farwa's tent, when he goes to Rabab's tent, when he goes to Layla's tent. They see that they're giving different nasiha to their children. When he goes to Farwa, he sees her giving nasiha to Qasim. When he goes to Layla, he sees her giving nasiha to Layla. When he goes to Sayyidah Zainab, he sees Sayyidah Zainab saying that if you even think about drinking any water, remember, your master Hussein is thirsty. The children of Hussein are thirsty. I will not be considering you worthy of my nourishment, of my upbringing, basically, if you drink any water, if you think of drinking any water. He goes to Fizza's tent. Fizza is crying, but she has no sacrifice to give. Imam Hussein says, tomorrow I will go for Fizza. And then he goes to the tent of Umm Rabab. She is there. She has a 6-month-old baby, Ali, and al-Asghar there. She is crying because she does not have a sacrifice to give. Or at least she thinks that Asghar is so small that he will not be able to be sacrificed for Abu Abdullah al-Hussein in Karbala. Abu Abdullah al-Hussein in Karbala. He says, on the day of Ashura, on the day of Ashura, all the companions, they seek permission from Imam Hussein to go and fight. Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, when they start the day of Ashura, they start with Salatul Fajr. This is the army of Abu Abdullah. Ali al-Akbar delivers Salatul Adhan of Salatul Fajr. Abu Abdullah al-Hussein has a few companions who were submerged in the mi'raj of the ishq of Abu Abdullah, to the extent that they did not care how many arrows befell their bodies as long as their master Hussein was saved. And then there was a scrimmage after the battle of after Salatul Fajr. Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, he addressed Yazid's forces and he addressed them. They decided to be the ones to start the fight, and Abu Abdullah al-Hussein knew this. He was never going to start any fight. But since they started the fight, Imam Hussein's forces replied, and they replied strongly. They say a scrimmage ensued after the khutbah of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. When the dust settled in Karbala, half of the companions of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein had already left this world. And one by one, Hur ibn Yazid al-Riyahi, the son of Hur, Habib ibn Madahir, Muslim ibn al-Sajjad, Zuhair ibn al-Qayn, Zuhair ibn al-Qayn. Then from the family, Ali al-Akbar, Qasim ibn al-Hasan, Aun and Muhammad. Then finally, Abul Fadl Abbas. So much so that Abu Abdullah al-Hussein has nobody to help him. He goes to the enemies and he makes the universal cry for justice. Ala hal min nasirin yansuruna. Is there anybody to help us? Is there anybody to help the haram of Rasulullah? Is there anybody to help us? None of Yazid's forces reply. Yet when Abu Abdullah al-Hussein says this, there is a commotion coming back from the khaymagah, from the tents. The women are crying. The women are lamenting. They don't know. He does not know what happened. He goes to the tent to see that his 6-month-old baby, Ali ibn al-Asghar, has fallen off their tent, fallen off his cradle, saying that, Father, if the enemies will not come to help you, Father, take me, I will go fight for you. Abu Abdullah al-Hussein takes Ali ibn al-Asghar and he hides him in his cloak. When the enemies see Abu Abdullah al-Hussein in this state, they think that Abu Abdullah al-Hussein has bought a Quran out. Abu Abdullah al-Hussein removes his cloak and he addresses the enemy with Ali al-Asghar in his arms. He says to them, if there is anybody at fault, it is me, Hussein. This baby is innocent. Give him some water. Nobody budges, nobody moves. He says that if you are afraid, that I will go get the water. Here I put him on the ground, and you get him some water. He puts Ali Asghar on the burning sands. Nobody gets water for Ali and al-Asghar. He takes Ali ibn al-Asghar back in his arms, and he says to him, Son, my pleas are falling on deaf ears and blind hearts and ignorant minds. Son, if you have some way to show them that you are thirsty, to express your thirst, show them, maybe they will have some respite. Ali Asghar, hearing this from his father, he turns to the enemies. He takes his dry tongue and he rubs it across his even drier lips. You know what happens? There is a commotion in Yazid's army. Some of them, they turn around and they start to cry, saying that we should give Ali ibn al-Asghar some water. Others say we should not. You know what happens? When Amr ibn Sa'd hears this, he says to Hadmala, kill the words of Hussein. Kill the words of Hussein. Hadmala takes a lance, a 3-headed lance, and he decides to aim it at Ali ibn al-Asghar. He just tries once. He can't do it. He tries a second time. He can't do it. Finally, the third time, he closes his eyes and he throws it. Somebody asks him later, why did you hesitate? He said, every time I would look, I would see a mother. And it was a 3-headed arrow, which means the one head of the arrow pierced the one ear of Ali ibn al-Asghar. The middle arrow pierced his neck, and the other arrow went right through the other ear. So much so, the arrow was thrown by so much force that it just pierced the neck of Ali ibn al-Asghar and went to the hand of Imam Hussein. Imam Hussein, he does not know what to do. 7 times he goes from the riverbank to the tents. He says, Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Ridan biqada'ihi wa tasliman li'amrih. 7 times he goes, Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. 7 times he comes back. Ridan biqada'ihi wa tasliman li'amrih. This is the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is what Imam Hussein is basically saying. And he is giving Rabab notice before he enters the tent that your Asghar has been killed. Before he enters, when Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam enters the tent, you know what? The first person to see Ali ibn al-Asghar was Sakina. But Abu Abdullah al-Hussein had covered the wound of Ali ibn al-Asghar, so she did not see it. She says, Father, did my brother Ali ibn al-Asghar get some water? Father, I was thirsty too. Hey Baba, मैं भी प्यासी थी. Baba, I was thirsty as well. He removes the cloth. Sakina sees what she sees. Rubab comes in and she sees this, and they say, do they even kill babies like you like this, Ali and al-Asghar? Lady Rubab is asked to move to the side. Abu Abdullah al-Hussein goes to the back of the Khaymagah. He takes on his al-Fiqar. Lady Zainab comes in. She says, brother, what are you doing? He says, Sister Zainab, I am burying my son Ali Asghar. She says, brother, give me the body and you make the grave. Ali al-Asghar, when Abu Abdullah al-Hussein makes the grave of Ali al-Asghar, you know what he says? He says, Asghar, usually when somebody makes a grave, they have some water they can pour on the grave. Asghar, I don't have any water. His tears wet the grave of Ali al-Asghar. You know what else? When they bury somebody, they usually have a takht on top of the grave, which makes it easier for the person in the grave as well, but he did not have that as well. He places Ali al-Asghar in the ground and he covers them with sand. Abu Abdullah al-Hussein does this, showing that he does not want Ali al-Asghar's body to be mutilated. But on the 11th of Muharram, when the A'da were coming and they were counting the heads of the martyrs that had been put on lances, Harmala noticed that one head was missing. He takes a lance and Rabab is watching. He pierces the ground once, he picks it up, there's nothing there. He pierces the ground a second time, he picks it up, there's nothing there. A final time, he pierces the ground, it gets stuck on something. He pushes the lance out, the arrow out, and it is the head and the body of the 6-month-old Ali al-Asghar. He severs the head from the body, and he puts the head of Ali al-Asghar on the lance as well. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Mata bi Hussein. Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein.
Say.
Abbas, 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 tera haq hai, zamana tujhe roye.
Abbas, tera haq hai, zamana tujhe roye. Abbas, tera haq hai, zamana tujhe roye.
Abbas, tera haq hai, zamana tujhe roye. Jab sham sahar Fatima Zahra tujhe roye.
Abbas, tera haq hai, zamana tujhe roye. Abbas, tera haq hai, zamana tujhe roye.
Durrali pere pe sitamgar kara hai. Durrali pere pe sitamgar kara hai. Kaise tere lashe pe sakina tujhe roye. Kaise tere lash pe sakina tujhe roye.
Abbas, tera haq hai, zamana tujhe roye. Abbas, tera haq hai, zamana tujhe roye.
जिस वक्त उठाया ना गया लाश जवा का. जिस वक्त उठाया ना गया लाश जवा का. शे उस गरी अकबर से ज्यादा तुझे रोए. शे उस गरी अकबर से ज्यादा
तुझे रोए. अब्बास, तेरा हक है, ज़माना तुझे रोए. अब्बास, तेरा हक है, ज़माना तुझे रोए. تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھ روئے.
زینب نے کہا شام غریبا میں گاتی. زینب نے کہا شام غریبا میں گاتی. بے پردہ مجھے دیکھ کے کہ بابا تجھ روئے.
بے پردہ مجھے دیکھ کے بابا تجھ روئے. عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھ روئے. عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھ روئے.
سجدے کے لیے جب لیا ہاتھوں کا سہارا. سجدے کے لیے جب لیا ہاتھوں کا سہارا. تو سجاد مصلی پہ حمزہ تجھ روئے. تو سجاد مصلی پہ حمزہ تجھ روئے.
عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھ روئے. عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھ روئے.
جب شام و سحر فاطمہ زہرا تجھ روئے.
عباس تیرا حق ہے زمانہ تجھ روئے.
کہتی تھی ماں بھری میں یاد سے لپٹ کر. ہائے ہائے علی اکبر. ہائے ہائے علی اکبر. کہتی تھی ماں ہوں بھری میں یاد سے لپٹ کر.
ہائے ہائے علی اکبر. ہائے ہائے علی اکبر.
ارمان تب ہے ناؤنگی پوشاک شہانی. ارمان تب ہے ناؤنگی پوشاک شہانی. افسوس کی رسائی نہ تجھ کوئی جوانی. کیسا تھا مقدر.
ہائے ہائے علی اکبر. ہائے ہائے علی اکبر.
18 برس پالک پروان چڑھایا. 18 برس پالک پروان چڑھایا. ہوگی سوالا ہے میرا خون نہایا. یہ کیا ہوا دل بھر.
ہائے ہائے علی اکبر. ہائے ہائے علی اکبر. کہتی تھی یہ ماں خون بھری مئی
یاد سے لپٹ کر. ہائے ہائے علی اکبر. ہائے ہائے علی اکبر. ماں تیری جدائی میں بلا کیسے جیے گی. ماں تیری جدائی میں بلا کیسے جیے گی. مر
अकबर हाय हाय अली अकबर कहती